Although there's still snow on the ground, spring is near. The sun is moving further north. It'll feel good to get back in the field, to plow the ground, to see the seed grow and mature and finally harvest it. But after 50 years of living and working the soil, life has become pretty mundane. The morning means rising early, milking and feeding the cows, separating the milk to sell the cream, taking care of the calves, and in the summertime, there's the field work. And at the end of the day, you just repeat the whole process. It's not getting easier to do the chores. The winter seems to get harsher and harsher as each year goes by. And the kids are growing up, going off to school, and soon they'll be gone. As the days march on and the years begin to unfold, farmers live from day to day. It's the biggest gamble in the world. One sweep of nature's hands, and your sweat and toil can be for naught. I've been fortunate. For the most part, the droughts, the insects, the hail, light, and floods have passed me by. During my day, I have seen great revolutions in farming. It used to be that a person had to shovel grain by hand into granaries. Now we have the elevators. It wasn't long ago, and farmers used to shock the grain by hand. Now we have the swather and the combine. When these changes came, it was seventh heaven to the farmer. But now these changes have given way to newer changes, and the cycle goes on and on. Over the course of time, this cycle has changed itself. The farm life is no longer what it used to be. If the changes are slow enough, they aren't recognized as changes. But when you look back, farming is no longer independent. It's dependent on the government. The farm community has changed. Everyone is caught up in his own affairs with no community spirit. And after a while, you accept these changes and live each day. And during the day, there's the mailman. Your contact with friends and relatives in far-off cities, the carrier of the newspaper which describes wars, famines, and the breaking news of the day. The countryside has changed too since I was a kid. There used to be farms and neighbors all around. Now the farms are being deserted for big city life, and there's no young people to take over for the retired farmers. I remember when I was young how good it felt to be so close to the soil, to see the fruits of your labor yield year after year. And I couldn't wait until I'd be able to do my own farming. You're your own boss, and it was the individualism and challenge of farming that made it all worth it. It was up to your hard work and endeavor to make farming a success, with God's help. But still, farm life was an austere life. There's never room left for culture and the finer things of life. But maybe that's the sacrifice one pays for the individualism of farm life. And you're so far removed from the center of activities. You just can't jump in the car and take off for a ball game. There's always the cows to be taken care of each day, the chickens to feed. You just can't seem to keep ahead of farm work. It's not a 9-to-5 job where you can call it quits and forget the troubles and problems after work. You have to desire and love the soil and the animals. I guess you would call it a farmer's professional pride in his job. In the winter, life is slack, and it's always enjoyable to go to town and visit the friends. But even towns aren't what they used to be. The only people you ever see in the streets are the very young and the older generation. The Middle Ages have left and gone for greener pastures. Really can't blame them. The small rural towns have nothing to offer. There's a bar, a grocery store, a pool hall, and a bowling alley. In my day, that would have been a lot. But now, well, I just don't know. It just isn't what it used to be. Maybe that's the price of progress. But going to town and doing the same thing over and over again has lost its luster. So you go home and do the chores, and another day has passed. Tomorrow will pass the same as today, and the day after that. And as the days go on and the years pass, you begin to notice changes that shape your life. In my day, the government stepped in and tried to help the farmer beat his economic crisis. But as new changes took over farming, overproduction became the key problem. It seems that this fertile country of ours was a sort of a liability to the farmer. This overproduction reached such a peak that in order to keep ahead, one had to go bigger and bigger, buy more land, purchase big machinery, and hire more labor. But what about the guy who couldn't afford this change? He's being squeezed out. There's no longer room for him. It's a tragic change. The traditional farm where people are content with what they have is a thing of the past. It's come down to an economic survival. Survival of the fittest is the name of the game. The real pinch is on the young farmer who hasn't gone big. But no one said that life was easy. It's harsh and demanding. And each day is a test. I always thought that my test days were over once I finished school. But as life goes on and you see the opportunities pass you by, you begin to look upon life as one big test. And it's not getting easier. Farming is becoming bigger and bigger, and that's going to require some very important decisions. Mistakes could take you to the brink of economic disaster. And automation will no doubt begin to play a role in the new farm. But my life will go on as usual, and new breakthroughs in farming will not affect me or the old settled farmers. And as the days end and the sun begins to set, farming has seen its better days.